The CBC's Chris Glover is outside the Supreme Court in Washington, and he joins me now. And again, a reminder for our viewers, this is live television. There are a lot of people around Chris, so we apologize in advance if there's any offensive language or actions that happens during this live report. Again, you are outside court all day. Tell us a little bit more about what you have been seeing.
Well, there is a lot of emotion here and a lot of people as well. There were some people on the anti-abortion side of things that were here earlier, though I'm not seeing very many of them now. Most of this crowd is certainly a part of the pro-choice movement, people who are furious with today's decision that, as you mentioned, struck down that historic case from 1973 that legalized abortion right across the United States. I have a guest, somebody who is here in 1973 in America and remembers what that was like. You were 20 years old back then. For those of us who don't remember what that situation was like or were here at that time, can you tell me what did it feel like in 1973 when you saw that abortion was legalized right across the nation?
It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. All of my friends who are women had abortions either before it was legal or after it was legal, and obviously it was so much safer for them after it was legal.
Describe for me what it was like prior to Roe v. Wade, before 1973, before it was legal. What were the circumstances that your friends were under trying to get abortions?
It was very clandestine. They never told anybody until maybe a while after it had occurred, and you never knew if it was going to be safe. They described places they had to go. It was definitely back alley kind of things.
Okay, so now that you hear this decision from the Supreme Court, you race down here to be a part of this protest. What's going through your head and your heart?
It literally makes me sick to my stomach. Women will continue to have abortions. That's just the reality. Many of them will end up having babies they don't want. And that's just wrong. So it's not going to be as safe, it's not going to be as easy, and it should be.
Okay, thank you very much for speaking with me, Linda. And I'm also joined by Alia. And Alia, tell me, why was it important for you to come down here and be a part of these protests today?
Well, I mean, I feel like the first answer is pretty easy. One, I'm a woman, I support women, and most importantly, I support human rights. That's why I'm here. I woke up this morning, I saw my mom and brother watching the TV, and I see it on breaking news, and our first thought was like, okay, we need to go down. I grew up, born and raised in DC. I've been fighting on the front lines all my life, going to protests, but this is something I never thought I should have to protest for in my generation. I've had so many women fight before me that have had to overturn this, and for it to now be something that I am having to do within my lifetime, and to grow up and have less rights than those before me who have put their lives and their work on the line for my rights. It's like, this is just a cycle that is never ending in this country, and we need to stop this. We need to stop the future rights of privacy that are being turned. I myself am a queer woman. I have that to fear for myself. This whole country is just a fear point for us and my generation. I have all my friends texting me, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And it's like, it's on us, children trying to start our lives, fight for our lives, to now have to fight for the rights and things that were already here for us and worked for. It's like, this is not fair. This is not the country that I will stand for. This is not the country that I am proud of, and it needs to stop.
Can you read for me your sign and why you felt it was important to bring that sign today?
Absolutely. So my sign says, you can ban abortions, but you can't ban safe abortions. And I think it's really important to talk about this. Just because of this ruling does not mean there are going to be any less abortions. There just means that there are going to be less safe access to abortions. But women in these positions, it's not because they want to end the life of a child. They are fully aware of what they're doing. They are smart women that are in these situations, and they can't all the time have a child to raise, and that doesn't mean that they stop. There are numbers of abortion alternatives that are not safe They have happened. We've seen what happens. We've seen what happens when we ban abortions, when we try to deregulate them, and it's not safe. It's going to cause not only the harm for children, but for the harm of these full adults that are women, that their bodies are not being cared for, their rights are not being cared for, and it's still going to continue to happen. Children have abortions, and if you ban that right, they're not going to be able to go on. People are going to do things behind their parents' backs, behind their loved ones' back, that thinks this is not okay and put their own body at harm.
Alia, I'm also curious, as a queer person, we heard this concurrent decision against abortion from Justice Clarence Thomas. He said that now that this decision has come forward, he was also saying that he thought that the courts should reconsider other substantive rulings, particularly, he mentioned same-sex marriage. As a queer person, what did you think when you heard that?
I mean, all I could think is disgust. Like, these people do not care about the love of their children, of their fellow neighbors, of anyone. How can you tell someone that they cannot love someone? How can you tell someone that they cannot be who they are because it's not constitutional? If that's what our nation stands for, I will not stand for our nation. Literally, my best friend and I, who is also gay, have always had this pact where if they ban gay marriage again, we're going to get married to one another and hide in secret. That is not something in 2022 that we should have to be talking about. I am supposed to grow up and I'm supposed to live without having to worry if I'm going to be loved and be able to love the person that I love. And the fact that that's a conversation that we're having, the fact that this ruling happened at this time just shows what needs to be done in this country, because things are going backwards, and unless we take a step forward, nothing is going to change, and the people that you love around you are not going to have the same rights as everyone, and that is not a nation that we can be living in at this time.
Alia, thank you very much for speaking with me, for your perspective. Linda, thank you as well. Arthi, just two of the perspectives that I've been hearing from people, but so many stories that I'm hearing and that I'm told, so much outrage here as people gather in front of the Supreme Court with this historic ruling coming down today.
And you know, Chris, of course, we've been gathering all of that reaction, and you've been speaking to people who are out there demonstrating because of this decision that was released by the Supreme Court. But just also a recap for some of our viewers about how we got to this decision by the Supreme Court and what some of the ramifications are for the ruling in the U.S.
So this all stems from a 2018 Mississippi law that would have seen to ban abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. And so instead of limiting abortion, the Supreme Court decided to overturn Roe v. Wade and essentially take away that precedent that legalized abortion nationwide. And as a result, things will now go to the states, and they will be able to decide in an ad hoc, patchwork way what they want to do for their own citizens. And we know that there are about a dozen states that have what's known as trigger laws, which means that they will kick in immediately. Now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, and abortion will immediately become illegal in those places. We also know that roughly about 24 states are likely to ban or severely restrict abortion in light of the fact that Roe v. Wade has been overturned. So this certainly dramatically changes the situation for trying to seek an abortion in the United States. It's certainly not going to be illegal everywhere. We know that some states, including California, have made it a part of their constitution, a legal protection for people in those states to have an abortion. And we know that other states have gone even further than this, like Colorado, for example, where not only will it remain legal, but they are working to expand access to abortions to make it even easier for people who want an abortion to get an abortion. But as I was mentioning earlier, that patchwork is something that a lot of people here are very upset about. Arthi?
Thanks for this, Chris. That is the CBC's Chris Glover in Washington. And Chris Glover is outside of the U.S. Supreme Court, and he is in the thick of that reaction and response from U.S. citizens. And, you know, I want to head to you now, Chris, in terms of what we heard from the U.S. Vice President.
Hey, Arthi, well, one thing that I picked up on for sure from the Vice President is something that we have heard from various other Democratic leaders today, and that is that this is not just about abortion, that this is now a fight about many other human rights as well. And you heard Kamala Harris there say that this calls into question other rights that we thought were settled. And of course, in that statement, she's referring to Justice Thomas, who had said in his concurrent opinion against abortion that now that this has come down, this overturning of Roe v. Wade, he thought that other substantive precedents should also be reconsidered the courts, and he specifically named same-sex marriage and contraception in that decision as well. So certainly something that Kamala Harris and other leaders have picked up on. And the other thing that you're hearing is they're really using this as a galvanizing force to get people to vote in the November midterms. Of course, it's an election year here in the United States, and we've heard that right from Nancy Pelosi, who was the first Democratic leader to speak almost moments after this decision came down this morning. Nancy Pelosi saying that reproductive freedom is on the ballot in November. That was echoed then again by President Biden when he spoke just around 12:30 Eastern time, and now we're hearing it again from Kamala Harris. So this will certainly be their campaign as the midterm elections draw nearer and as November draws nearer. And we're also hearing from Republicans as well, who are also trying to strike on this moment, saying that it's a big day for America and a good day for America. We heard Mike Pence saying earlier today, the former vice president, he was saying that this is all about the sanctity of life. And he was also saying that they will not stop, they will not relent, and they will continue forward. Of course, we heard from Democratic leaders that they were concerned that the Republican Party would be seeking a full nationwide ban on abortion. And certainly when you hear Mike Pence say words like that, it does sound like that would be in the game plan as well. Arthi?
And Chris, I also did want to ask you about the scene where you are right now. I know you have been speaking with some of the people who have been protesting there today, or at least voicing their opinions on that decision that was released. But we know that there is another demonstration coming up. So what is the climate like? What is the security like where you are?
There have been a couple scuffles that we have seen here. A couple people that I just saw. One guy ripped a sign out of another person's hands. He was on the anti-abortion side, and another person on the pro-choice side. So things have happened here. Emotions are high, but certainly I haven't seen any kind of violence or anybody getting into any sort of real trouble here. But of course, the authorities are preparing. When you have this many people all together with emotions as high as they are, there is certainly the concern for violence and destruction. And to that end, we know that these security fences here at the Supreme Court, they have been up since that leaked draft decision came down at the beginning of May. They've stood there encircling the Supreme Court ever since. Today, there's also another fence just a couple meters outside of that, blocking people from even getting close to the security fence. So obviously, there's a lot of police here. Some roads in this area are blocked off. There are also some businesses that have already boarded up their windows, concerned that there could be some sort of violence or destruction in the days ahead. But up to this point, I certainly have not seen anything on that front from my vantage point. And it's really at this point just a sense of a lot of emotion in the air, and people very disappointed on one hand, and other people very jubilant today. So a lot of divergence here in the crowd in the U.S. Capitol. Arthi?
Chris, thank you for your reporting today. We appreciate it. That is Chris Glover outside of the Supreme Court in Washington.